Talk about sport with Beck Brooks. Issues in sport that get us talking. Opinions matter.
There are issues within many sports. This podcast focuses on those issues that surround football at the moment, and in particular women's football, looking at referees, homosexuality, the FA and more. Poor refereeing is becoming a big problem in women's football, especially at a local level. During one game, 5 goals were incorrectly labelled offside by the referee, giving one team an unfair advantage. So the question is, are the referees getting worse? Are teams actually at a disadvantage? With me today is Steph Robinson. She's the goalkeeper for Wigton Moor ladies football team. We'll get her thoughts on the standard of refereeing and other pressing issues affecting the women's game. To start with, Steph, what is your opinion of the quality of refereeing at the level you play at?
You have many different referees that are different quality at a local level. I think it's just across all sports and all levels of those sports that you'll get bad decisions, you'll get good decisions. You know, the referee's only human, you know, can only see so much. But in terms of at a local level in particular, you'll have referees that teams will have week in, week out. They'll get to know the players, they'll get to know this, that and the other about each team. And sometimes it just becomes at a disadvantage to the opposing team if you're the away team. So I think, and also referees at a local level don't necessarily have up-to-date qualifications and stuff. They'll get the first qualification that they need, like the base qualification, which means they can ref, they'll get paid to do it, but they maybe don't keep up to date with new rules that come in or the changing of rules.
As it becomes such a problem in local football, especially at the moment,
I wouldn't say it's a massive problem because at the end of the day, you need a referee. You can't play any sport without a referee or an umpire. You've got to remember that at the end of the day, they're doing a job and getting paid to do that job. So obviously you expect a certain quality, and when you are playing and you get a bad decision, it's frustrating. But it comes in swings and roundabouts. You'll get some decisions that go for you, some that'll go against you. So, you know, it'd be great if they got all decisions right, but it's just not going to happen. And it, you know, unless you introduce more technology into refereeing, then, you know, it's never going to be perfect.
And do you think it would be different if it was women who were actually refereeing games?
Yes and no. Obviously, as a woman, you can relate more to how women perceive things. But at the end of the day, football is the same game for women and for men. You have the same rules, the same pitch. So, in terms of referees, I can't see it being much different from a women's perspective.
I went along to the Wigton Moor ladies ground and spoke to their manager, Colin Sherman. He has some strong views on the situation.
Referees are quite patronising, again condescending as well. What they do is, if a girl fouls somebody, which happens in football, I find in football, in a men's game, they'll book him and say, that's wrong, cut it out and this and that. And the men, referees, mainly male referees, will say, oh, I don't think she meant it, and don't book her, and don't treat it like the same sort of game. And it is the same game. It is football. People do foul people. People do need pulling up on it. And I think girls who have coached and managed, they find it frustrating that the referees are treating them like this, that they want to be treated and respected as proper footballers, not as oh, she's so cute and she really doesn't mean to hurt anybody. So that's bad.
So having listened to what Colin was saying, do you agree with what he was talking about, Steph?
Yeah, most definitely. I've been in situations myself where I play in goals, so automatically you're the last person. If you take out a player, it's an automatic red in a men's game, in international, in Premiership, whatever level you're playing at. If you're the last person, you take that player, it's a red card. I've been in situations where I've just absolutely lost my head on the pitch and just gone for a player, taken her out and given a penalty, but I've not even got a yellow card. And it's like, oh well, there was no intent there, but there was, and I know there was, and everyone else on the pitch knew there was. So, and also you see fouls regularly, you know, going through the back of players, not even getting the ball, and in men's games that would be a yellow card. And I think in all the years I've been playing senior football, I've seen about less than 10 yellow cards given. And I've seen a couple red cards given, but that's more for violent conduct, so like players being punched off the ball, just getting in fights and stuff. But apart from that, you don't see double yellow bookings or like that.
And do you find the refs are patronising, like Colin was saying?
I don't have much conversation with the ref in terms of that, but obviously Colin as a manager, he's going to have more conversation with referees, before, after matches and things like that. And I've never personally found a referee to be patronising, but Colin's got a different role to me within the team, so he's obviously going to see different things to what I see.
And do you think it will referees treat women's football differently to the male game?
Yeah, definitely, because like I said about the yellow card and the red card thing, you'll see a lot more yellow, a lot more red in the men's game than you will in the women's game. And you get away with so much more in the women's game. And I can't understand why. At the end of the day, football is the game. Whether you're a woman or a man playing the game, it's still football, and there's still rules, and the rules are the same for each, gender. So I think referees are definitely more lenient with women.
I've spoken to other members of Wigton Moor ladies football, and they share the same opinion that one of the main issues in the women's game is the quality of referees.
I think one of our biggest issues is the referees because of how we play. We play a very tight line at the back, and the referees tend to turn up to our games thinking it's just going to be a bit of a doddle and just think they don't really have to do anything. So when they do turn up and they're not ready mentally for what we've got, they're a bit shocked and kind of don't really know what they're doing.
Definitely referees, very inconsistent and don't really follow the rules as such.
So having listened to some of the opinions that Wigton Moor ladies have said about refereeing, if the referees have been qualified to ref the matches, it shouldn't matter what the game plan that Wigton Moor have, for example. Do you agree with that?
Colin, as a manager, sets a game plan around our strengths and obviously around the rules. So, like Liv said, we play a tight line at the back to play the offside trap, yet referees are not watching the line properly. So because it's so tight and we play it so high up the pitch, they think that players from the opposition have just run through and they get away with it, when really the referee should be looking and concentrating properly. And the more that it's easy, the more you should realise what game plan we are playing. Referees should be able to see that. And then obviously, but you don't want a biased opinion because obviously they're not going to be offside every time. So, there you go, you just need that consistency that he's got to be watching all the time to make the right decision at that time.
And do you think because some of them can't follow the rules, the referees, do you think they should be refereeing the match?
I think if, as a manager, you're disappointed with a referee's performance, then you have to put a report in, and that referee then should be under supervision or, should be by somebody senior to him to make sure that he is performing to the standards that we want.
Charlotte Kent, who has played football to a high standard for many years and who now plays for her uni, York St John, chatted to me earlier about her feelings and experiences she has had with referees in women's football.
We've never had a female referee, and we do have male referees. Sometimes I think with girls there seems to be a general... Obviously a boys' game is probably a lot more physical than a female, so we've had problems with them trying to... Okay, what are they going to allow females to get away with? Because some females, obviously, it's a very bitchy element, and then they say something, and then they're not picking it up as like an insult or free kick. And then obviously there's always sometimes we've had the problems with referees of just miscommunication. Referees haven't turned up to football games and the wrong pitches. So we have had problems, with getting good referees to the matches.
So having listened to what Charlotte's opinion was, Steph, why do you think there is a lack of women who are refereeing games?
You could ask the same question about why there's a difference in the number of women actually playing football. We're still not past the dark ages of that, women belong in the house and do the housework and cook tea and all that. Obviously it is improving. It has improved a lot over the last century or whatever, but it's in progression, and that's what you've got to remember. Now we have got I think we've got a couple of women referees that actually do referee in the Premiership, And already, in the first game, she was slated so much.
And do you think it's the FA's fault for the lack of quality in refereeing in the game?
Yes and no. Yes, because why are they not making sure that referees are kept up to a good standard? And no, because there's only so much they can actually do to ensure this.
Have you seen players left frustrated on the football pitch because of the quality of refereeing that they're having to abide by?
Yeah, a lot. There's a lot of frustration. At my level football, you turn up to play football because you enjoy playing it, you have a passion for it, and you want to play to the best of your ability. And when something's stopping you doing that, that's out of your control, and you know it's wrong, and there's nothing you can do about it, because at the end of the day, the referee is in charge of the game.
But the quality of referees isn't the only issue within football. Homosexuality, whether it is in the male or female game, is an issue that most people have an opinion on. Recently, Casey Stoney, England international football player, came out as gay on a national radio station. So do the media need to broadcast this kind of information? Charlotte Kent has an important opinion on this.
It's a funny one, that, isn't it? Because as much as, like you say, when a famous sportsman or woman does come out as being gay, as much as it has its good effects on the fact that, okay, it helps people, it makes you think, yeah, if they're gay, I can be gay, it gives them the courage. On the other hand, highlighting it and making it such a big deal kind of then has a knock-on effect, where they're thinking, oh my God, because then everybody's talking about it, and then making it a big issue is making it an issue, where sometimes these things, well, if somebody's straight, they don't do media coverage on, you don't come out as straight, it's the norm. So by highlighting and making such issues, whether people are gay, bi, in a sense, it worsens the problem by making it an issue, because then it is spoken about.
Charlotte was saying about how we never see in the media footballers coming out as straight, and how it is different for people who come out as gay. They feel like they can't come out or have to publicise it. Steph, what are your thoughts on this?
I think that she's right in that, you don't have to say you're straight, because people automatically, it's an automatic presumption that you are straight until you say otherwise. Things are getting better, but it's going to take a long time for it to be that the question is, are you straight or gay, not are you gay. In terms of being a top level footballer and it coming out publicly, I don't see why it has to, because at the end of the day you're playing football. What has your sexuality got to do with you playing football?
And do you think because Casey Stoney's come out, there's a positive about that, because now people are going to see as sort of a role model and people might feel like they can come out easily because she's done that?
Yeah, I think, it will help people to come out. But again, why should it be a problem coming out as gay? Because at the end of the day you are who you are, and whether that's because you like playing football or you like doing certain things, why should you have to feel that a role model will help you say publicly who you are? You should be able to do it without hesitation, sort of thing.
Definitely. And do you think it's harder for males at the moment to come out in football because of all this changing room banter that surrounds it?
Yeah, definitely. A big difference between men and women's sport is that, especially at a local level, men get showered together, but women don't. And obviously, like, if you've got a male that's gay, there's going to be this automatic presumption that this certain gay male is going to be checking you out or having a look at your body and things like that. And I think as a male, you want to avoid any friction between your team. You don't want the hassle and stuff. And as a man, you're expected to be macho. You're expected to be classed as strong. And I suppose people have a presumption that being gay means you're weak.
Have you experienced any sort of stereotyping yourself?
Not particular, because obviously I think for girls it's more accepting within sport. Because again, there's a presumption that if a woman plays a sport that's kind of classed as a male sport, you're automatically called a dyke, you're lesbian, you're this, that and the other. And things kind of need to step away from that, and people need to realise that not all women are gay because they play what's classed as a male sport.
And do you think the media could make people feel more comfortable about their sexuality? Is there something that they could do more of?
I think they could just ignore it. Don't think it's necessary for the media to publish anything on anybody's sexuality.
And do you think this will change in time, and we'll never be having this conversation again? No one will even be thinking about it?
I'd like to think so, but I don't think it would probably happen in my lifetime.
The FA is a major support that football teams have to keep the teams from folding. Colin Sherman has thoughts on what the FA could do to improve the women's game.
What I think they should be doing is say, look, there is an existing team. They've still got to pick players up and move them across, and they're coming from different parts of the city. They've still got to get lifts for them. They've still got to buy tracksuits. They've got to buy kit. They've got to mark cones. They've got to pay for training. It's ongoing. Now, if they really wanted the women's game to continue, what they would do is say, well, let's look at these teams that are already doing. Let's look at what they're doing for the teams. Let's go and check on them and chat with them.
So could the women's game carry on suffering if there's no strong link between the FA and the teams?
Obviously, the FA has to kind of follow policies that are given to them by the government, and some of the focus on the current policy is to kind of increase participation. And I think if you look at where the biggest deficit in participation is, it will be at a certain age group, or it'll be women's participation. So if national government bodies are wanting to increase participation in order to gain funding from the government, then they will be looking at the biggest deficits in participation. So there will be improvements, but I think they've got to learn to look after teams better than what they are doing in order for participation levels to grow.
And so the media plays a massive part in advertising the sport. Football could be said to one of the main sports that is shown in the media. And the question is whether the media is covering enough of women's football. Steph, what are your thoughts on the amount of coverage that women's football gets at the moment?
It's increasing. Could be better, could be worse. Obviously, we get nowhere near as many as the men's do. The men's get every game covered, women's don't. So, but again, the reasoning behind that is because it costs a hell of a lot of money to broadcast the game on national television, and if you're not going to get the viewings for it, you're not going to get the money back from showing that game. And I think that also plays across in the terms of the funding for the women's game, is that, you know, the FA aren't going to necessarily get a lot back in terms of revenue from the women's game as they do from the men's game.
Finally, what do people want in particular for the future of women's football?
I hope the FA listen. I hope that they let the women have their league, a recognised league for themselves, not so much just the Super League, and again trying to get it to mirror the men's, and we've got that, or just trying to compete with America. Well, let's try and encourage people, go to the schools, go to places, and, you know, just help encourage people to come and play, and try and get volunteers, some sort of better facilities for volunteers. Not necessarily financial reward for what they're doing because they're volunteers, but probably more financial support, as in just to help them out expenses wise and things like that. Do you know what I mean? So if we can get people thinking in that particular way, get that way of thinking, and start from the bottom. It's a new sport, but it's not a new sport for women, but we're putting together newer leagues, new things. We can do it right. I'm not saying that the men's isn't functioning, the men's leagues do function, but the women's leagues sometimes don't function because towards the end of the seasons or in certain divisions you've got 7 players turning up.
I definitely want to be more concentration on kind of improving the women's game and making more lady footballers full time, because once they can do that and they have enough funding to do that, the quality of the game will be so much better.
Just be obviously nice to see like women's football grow, and hopefully if they just keep doing the good work, it'll be great to see our country as female football just growing. And
So Steph, have you got any final thoughts about any other issues in football? Is there one you could pinpoint in men's football that you could talk about?
I think at the moment the biggest issue with men's football is the homosexuality thing. I think it needs addressing, and I think it needs addressing soon, because I think you're gonna find that men, as soon as they find out or realise that they are gay, just won't want to play because stigma behind it. I think that is the biggest issue in men's football.
So thank you, Steph, for discussing with me today issues surrounding football at the moment.
You have been listening to Talk About Sport with your host, Beck Brooks. The next podcast will look into issues in basketball and rugby.